Saturday morning and it is literally the day after the storm. We had a storm yesterday that ravaged the country, and the pond took a bit of damage, but more on that on another video. I've got to get out there tomorrow and sort the pond out, but as I say, it's still quite breezy out there, so I'm not going to try and do any filming today. So you're looking at the marine tank here, and what we're going to do today is do water changes on the marine tank, the cold water tank, and through there the big tropical tank. I'm going to show you how I do my water changes. So this video will hopefully help people that are quite new to the hobby, and if you're experienced and see anything I'm doing wrong, constructive advice is always welcome. But I'd like to think after 40 plus years of fish keeping, I've got water changes sorted. Now what you can see on the floor there, that's the reservoir for the automatic top up, because saltwater tanks lose a lot of water and you need a top up that automatically keeps it at a set level to keep the salinity right. Now overnight in this storage box, I've been mixing 40 litres of water and 1.2 kilos of salt, which gives a specific gravity of 1.020 or 35 parts per parts per thousand salinities. Now that is not what you would use in a reef tank, but in a fish only tank you want the salinity a bit lower. It helps the fish fight off any parasites, because their bodies aren't having to work so hard to osmotically regulate their own water content. So as a rule of thumb, fish only systems are run at either somewhere between 1.020 and 1.022. I run mine at 1.020. So there is the fresh water that we're going to be putting in, and here's all my equipment. So without further ado, I will get on with it, and catch you in a second. So as you can see, my siphon device is ready in the tank, ready to go. What I've done here is I've fitted this little plastic elbow. Now the reason I fit those is that when the pipe goes straight to here, when you're trying to siphon out of the tank, it sort of collapses and really restricts the flow. So by putting this plastic elbow in, it stops this plastic pipe collapsing and allows a really good fast flow. So that is then connected to this green pipe, which runs to that drain there. So I'll get siphoning and show you how I clean the gravel, or sand in this case. The siphon is running, and what we do is we ram that into the sand, and you'll see some of the sand is a little bit green in front of the siphon, but by doing this you turn the sand over and it stops algae building up on the actual sand. So that green sand will all get turned over. Caught one of the decorations there, and what happens is the sand gets lifted up but not very far and falls back down, but any detritus in the sand, sorry, it's really bad room for reflections this, any detritus in the sand is carried away with the water to drain. So I realised I could have the light on to show you a bit better, but there you can see how the siphon cleans the sand. Now I shall do this on all three tanks, but I'll only show you it on this one tank, because once you've seen it once, you see all the muck going up. And also the importance of cleaning your sand bed and gravel bed over, especially if they're an inch or two deep like in this tank, is it stops the build-up of anaerobic bacteria which produce hydrogen sulfide, which is not good for your tank. Now it takes a long time for that to happen, but by regularly cleaning your substrate, you do stop it happening altogether. And hydrogen sulfide mixed with water equals sulfuric acid, which is why it's not particularly beneficial to allow that to happen. Now just down the side here I've got some markers. I want the water to go down to this one because that's my 40 litre marker, and then when it does I'll start refilling. So back to you in a bit. Right, so here we go, we are refilling the tank. There's a pump there that's pumping the fresh salt water into the tank, and I will pump it in until the pump just about goes dry, and then I can lift the container up and pour the last bit in. Just use a book as a weight to make sure that in pipe doesn't pop out the tank and spray salt water. Oh, sorry about that, wind just caught the door. Spray salt water everywhere. Not very impressed with this salt. I was using Red Sea, but I've switched to Instant Ocean, and it's not, bearing in mind it's been mixing for nearly 24 hours, it's not as clear as I'd like it. Hopefully it'll mix fully clear in here. It is at the right salinity, so I don't really know what's going on, or whether it's some sort of bacteria bloom in there, I don't know. Now the other pump, there's the heater that heats the water up, and the other pump that's for circulating the water while I'm mixing the salt up, to make sure it all mixes thoroughly. Now when I do the cold water tank, I won't use heated water, and the same with the tropical tank, because with the tropical tank I'm only changing about 15%, and when that mixes with the water that's left, it only drops the temperature a degree or so, and the fish can quite easily cope with that. Because this is what's called reverse osmosis water that I've mixed with the salt, I don't need to put any dechlorinators in the water, because the reverse osmosis device takes all the chlorine and all the impurities out of the water, so you're just left with basically 100% pure H2O, and then by adding the salt, you add in that salt all the chemicals and well, not so much chemicals, all the minerals that the fish need. And if it was a coral reef tank, I would be using a higher grade of salt to make sure that it had better alkalinity and higher calcium concentrate for corals. But I'm not keeping corals at the moment. You can't keep them with some of the fish I've got, they'll eat them. And I'm keeping plastic corals instead, which I think they look okay. Everyone that sees the tank likes them, so that's good enough for me. They're not everybody's cup of tea, I know, but at least the fish can't eat them. The puffer fish has tried and hasn't been able to. So I'll leave it at that. There you go, all that water has been pumped back into the tank. It's a little bit murky from where the return water tends to stir the sand up a bit, but I'm about to turn all the filtration back on, and there is a mechanical element to the filtration, and that will quickly clear the tank again, and I'll turn the lights off. Thing about lights and tanks is they're only there for your benefit. Unless you're keeping live plants and live corals, you do not need lights on all day long. You are just burning extra electricity and encouraging nuisance algae. So these lights, they don't even come on till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they go off again at 8:30 in the evening. So in the evening is when I do most of my fish viewing. The lights will be on, but for the majority of the day they're off. The fish don't need them, and even with them on that short time period, as you can see, there's a film of algae on the equipment. You never ever be without zero algae in a marine tank. There's always something, and unless obviously you've got a lot of tangs, fish that eat it, but I don't have any tangs. This tank isn't big enough for tangs. So that's the marine tank done. I probably won't show you much on the other two tanks because it's a bit like copying of what I've done on here, but I'll show you a little bit when I do the cold water. Right, I'm now doing the goldfish tank, and the gravel's only a couple of centimeters deep in here. I didn't want a really deep gravel bed because you see all the debris coming up, because goldfish are very, very messy fish. They poop a lot, and you need to get as much of that poop out of the tank as possible. So this tank's having a gravel clean as well. I'm doing just one end because I did the other end last week, so that'll do with the gravel cleaning. So yeah, they're not the innocent little fish that a lot of people think, and especially fancy goldfish like this. If you keep these in the tank with no filtration and no maintenance, they're not going to do very well. To get them to do well, you need to be doing weekly water changes, cleaning the gravel, and feeding them high quality foods. I feed mine New Life Spectrum, which is one of the premier fish foods on the market, and certainly their colours seem to be really good, and their bellies are always full, so that's good. So in a minute I'll show you what I do when I refill. Okay, the cold water tank's draining away. I've cleaned the gravel, or the gravel that I'm cleaning this week, and in a short while I'll be up filling it. Now just want to show you what I use for water conditioner. I use Seachem Prime. One of the most highly rated. I'm not going to say it's the best because there are other good products out there, but one of the most highly rated water conditioners on the market. What I like about Prime and Safe, the powdered version, which I have as well, is that not only do they break down chlorine and chloramine, they will also detoxify any heavy metals that's in your tap water. So as I shall be putting tap water in this tank, any contaminants I need dealing with, and the Prime does that. Now when I'm dosing, because I'm going to be putting it straight in the tank, there's different instructions if you dose the top up water separately, but I'm going to be filling straight into the tank, so I need to dose for the whole tank, and this tank holds 400 litres after displacements. So this is 1 capful is 5 ml, so I will need 2 capfuls for the whole tank, and then the water will be nice and safe for my goldfish. So what I'll do is when I'm refilling it, I will dose the prime, and the filter will help mix the prime and the incoming water up, because I leave the power filter running on this tank while I'm doing the water change. Obviously I mustn't let the water level drop below the intake for the power filter, which I'm not going to do, otherwise the filter will run dry. But it's nearly down to the level I want it down to, and then we'll start filling up. So there you go. I've added 10 mils of Seachem Prime, and I'm now blasting water in off my hose. And obviously the most important thing to do now, sorry about the reflections, but this is a sun lounge, so you do get a lot of reflections. The most important thing to do now is to watch it, because if I flood the sun lounge, I will not be a popular man, and trust me, I have done it before. So I shall make myself a brew and then sit and watch this fill up. Back to you when we're doing a couple of bits on the tropical tank. The tropical tank has what's known as a sump, which is a tank under the tank, which contains all the filtration. So the water flows through that overflow down some pipes into these filter socks, which take out particles. I've got some sponge in there to take out even more particles, and then I've got absolutely loads of biological media. Now the thing about a sump tank is you need an auto top up on this, even though it's fresh water, because it's so much open space that I'm losing about 2 litres a day for evaporation. And if I didn't have a top up, my return pump in the end section there would run dry. Now in order to do the water change on here, I need to disconnect some equipment, which means squeezing in here. This is the auto top up. I need to unplug that because it's got an alarm. The water in a minute is going to drain down into the sump from the top tank, and that would immediately set that alarm off. Here I'm going to turn off the return pump. You'll see these lights go out, and then finally there's a little internal filter in the tank. I need to unplug that because that might be out of water when I drain down. Now you probably hear a sucking noise. That's the water draining out of the tank into the sump, and it will settle around this mark here. And then I've got further marks. Each of those marks is a 50 litre interval, and today I'm going to change 100 litres. Now all told there's about 800 litres in this system, so I'm going to be changing 1/8. I don't know what that is as a percentage off the top of my head. See, the water's settling down to that white mark, and then once it does, I can start siphoning. Now I'm not going to clean the sand on the, yeah, it's finished. I'm not going to clean the sand on this tank today because I cleaned all the sand last week. It's a mixture of sand and coral gravel. So that doesn't need cleaning, and I think there's little point in showing you me refilling it or anything like that. So that's pretty much the end of this video. All this maintenance takes about 1.5 to 2 hours, so not as long as you might think, and that's all 3 tanks done for another week. What I do at the end, after I've done all the water changes, is I clean the glass on the outside and inside, and find that once a week is sufficient doing that as well. Anyway, I hope you found this content useful. and I'll catch you in the next one.